I would just like to say, I know I'm kind of beating a dead horse with all these Sixers videos to a certain extent, but I am baffled by this team. I mean, this has to be like worst case scenario. Not quite worst case scenario, but it's getting there for the Sixers this season. The way that this season has gone, especially the way that the last couple of weeks have gone, is just like almost no words, in all honesty, for how just disastrous the season has unfolded. Even with Embiid back recently, things are still terrible. Tonight, Tyrese Maxey, it was his turn for a huge off night. 1 for 9, 1 for 7 from 3. Paul George, I think this is just who he is now. He's just not very good anymore. I would say it's been all year at this point. He's averaging 16 a game and he can't have an efficient high level game to save his life. Joel Embiid is 27, 12, and 4 tonight, but efficiency wise, 8 of 19, 1 of 5 from 3. Not good. As a whole, just horrible. Honestly, just horrible basketball. The only players on this Sixers roster that I actually like at this point are Justin Edwards, Gershon Yabusele, Jared Butler, Quentin Grimes. That's about it. I actually think the addition of Jared Butler was a legitimately good one. He was having a solid year in Washington, and I think him coming in here gives them an actual backup point guard over Kyle Lowry. No disrespect to Lowry, NBA legend, greatest Raptor of all time, and I'm not saying best, but greatest, most impactful, really amazing career, and deserves to have his jersey retired in Toronto. But he's way lost it at this point. Like, at this point, Jared Butler was a good addition. Quentin Grimes is a great addition over Caleb Barton, who's not healthy and isn't as good as Quentin Grimes either. So those two guys were good additions to the trade deadline, and I like those moves. They just don't seem to matter very much, though, because this team is still not good. And it's almost hard to explain why they're not good. A big part of it, yes, is Paul George just not being as good as at basketball as you would expect Paul George to be. You expect him to come in and be Paul George, and he's coming in and been Tobias Harris. And that's just not what you wanted. He's not the defender he once was. He's certainly not even close to the offensive player that he once was. And I mean, look, on nights where Tyrese Maxey isn't having an amazing night, like, you could lose like this against a Raptors team that, look, I made a video on the Raptors yesterday as y'all watch this video. I think the Raptors are good. Not really yet, but they're gonna be good. But they're not fully healthy right now. They traded away multiple rotation guys this season. Their biggest addition in Brandon Ingram probably won't play till next season. Like, at the end of the day, this is a pretty bad Raptors team right now. And the Sixers just lost to them, are now 20 and 33, have lost 10 of their last 15 games. In terms of the standings, it is almost impossible, but somehow they are still a game and a half back of the Bulls. They are the 11th seed in the terrible Eastern Conference, or at least terrible bottom half of the Eastern Conference, and have a record of 20 and 33, putting them 13 games below 500. They've lost 4 games in a row. Embiid, even when he plays, has a losing record this season at this point. I think they're 8 and 9 in games he's played or something along those lines this season. That could be wrong, but it's pretty accurate, pretty close anyway. This is a bad basketball team, plain and simple. There's no other explanation for it than that. And look, I don't think it is possible, I will say, that they turn it on tomorrow and play not bad basketball for the rest of the season. I do not think it is possible that they turn it on tomorrow and play high level, consistently good basketball for the rest of the season. And I mean, here's the honest truth. At this point, they are 5.5 games back of the Atlanta Hawks for the 8th seed in the East. They are 5 games back of the Orlando Magic for the 9th seed in the East. And I think the Magic are the more realistic target than the Hawks, despite the fact that the Hawks have won 3 games straight. I don't think the Hawks are going to be a consistently good team for the rest of the season. But here's the honest truth. If they don't end up as a top 8 seed, the best case scenario for them is the 8th seed, which means Cleveland in the first round, and then the season's over, basically. And the honest truth is, even if they're the 7th seed, you get Boston. So it doesn't really matter. Cleveland or Boston in the first round is what they're looking at. Best case scenario at this point. This team, you cannot convince me, has a chance to beat either of those teams. Not to mention, there is no guarantee on any given night that Joel Embiid's going to wake up without a swollen knee the next day. And that's, I don't really think, his fault, but it's an absolute truth of the situation that the Sixers are in right now. You cannot trust Embiid's health at all. He has not played nearly as well this season as a whole. His body language is terrible. He doesn't look confident. He doesn't look comfortable. He doesn't look like he's enjoying himself. It's not the same player. Paul George, speaking of not the same player, the efficiency isn't god-awful atrocious, but he's averaging 16 a game. That's not Paul George. 37% from three, 48% from two. I mean, isn't completely horribly atrocious, but it's not what you expect from Paul George. Tyrese Maxey, who has been really, really good for the last month or so, is averaging 28 on 35%, 53% from two. He was bad tonight, but as a whole, he's been really good. But he can't win games for this team by himself. They don't have a Jared McCain, who they absolutely need. They need another shot creator, scorer, ball handler, and they don't have that at all without him. Yabusele, who's been really good, 40% from three, 63.5% from two. Very good chance he's not a Sixer next season because he was a one-year contract and somebody else might pay him more. Justin Edwards looks to be a promising rookie. He's having a good season, but has really only started getting real playing time as of late. And I don't think he's like amazing. He's just having a good rookie year. Give him credit. He's going to be a contributor in this league, it looks like, for a long time, but he's not changing things. KJ Martin, who I thought was really good, and the Sixers were 7-3 in games he started this season. They trade. That did not make sense to me. Kyle Lowry's old. Andre Drummond is old. Eric Gordon is more efficient, but still old. And can't do anything besides shoot threes at this point at all. Like, he's got no off the dribble ability whatsoever. Reggie Jackson's not on the team anymore, and he's old. Ricky Council's a rookie, and he's not that good. And I mean, Jared Butler looks to be a decent addition, as does Quentin Grimes. I like both those players, like I was saying earlier in the video. It just doesn't mean that much, because here's the honest truth. You look at them for the season, they're bad for the season. Like, their numbers, offensive and defensive rating wise, are bad. They have the 23rd worst, or I guess the 8th worst defensive rating in basketball this season, which is pretty bad. Like, no doubt about it, obviously. But the crazy thing is, defensive rating of a 115.2, offensive rating of a 111.4 for the season, which puts both of those stats in the bottom 10 or so of all of basketball. But if you look at the last 15 games, they're actually somehow worse defensively. The second worst defensive rating in all of basketball in their last 15 games, a record of 5-10, and an offensive rating that, while better at a 116.6, still leaves their net rating at a negative 4.1. So 8th worst in basketball in that time frame, and worse than they are for the entire season, where they only a negative 3.8. So slightly worse than they've been all year in their last 15 games. I get that Embiid hasn't played a lot of those games, but they've lost 4 in a row, most of those with Embiid back. There just aren't excuses to be made for this team anymore. A home loss to a bad Raptors team is unacceptable. And look at this. This play was just like, I saw this and I just like face palmed. I have no words. What is Joel Embiid doing here? Wide open three. There are 12 seconds left in the game. Catch and shoot the ball. I don't care that you're 1 for 5. He pump fakes, drives the ball, turns it over. They lose the game. This team is, I don't even have the words, bro. They're imploding. I mean, they are legitimately imploding. I don't know how they might not make the playoffs. I mean, I've been sitting here all year and like, oh, if they're not careful, they might miss the playoffs. Oh, if they don't get things together, they might miss the playoffs. I didn't really think they were going to miss the playoffs. They seriously might miss the playoffs, despite all these other teams in the Eastern Conference trying to give it to them. The Hawks lost Jalen Johnson for the season and made moves at the deadline to get worse. The Magic can't score the ball. Like, they don't know how to score offense with any sort of level of consistency whatsoever. The Bulls are atrocious. Just got beat by 40 by the Pistons. They had 29 points at halftime. And yet the Sixers are somehow still worse than all of those teams. Make it make sense. Disaster. I don't know how they don't shut down Embiid. I don't know how you just keep going out there with this season. Not to mention, Embiid is going to need surgery this offseason. What's the plan? Is there a plan? Is there a strategy to get things back on the right track? Because as good as Tyrese Maxey is, he can't do it by himself. And these giant albatross contract for these old, unreliable, inconsistent players in Embiid and Paul George is killing this team. And I don't think I see a path back to serious contention, maybe in this era of Sixers basketball, in all honesty, which is crazy to say because just a couple years ago, they felt like real contenders, even last year before Embiid got hurt. But I don't know. This is where we are at this point, and I don't know if it's going to get better. So I hope y'all did enjoy the video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. Be back with more NBA content very, very soon. I appreciate y'all. Peace.